Ever caught yourself in a scenario where you're working on some data, you're using MySQL, everything's going fine, and then boom, out of nowhere, the MySQL service stops working, you no longer have access to your crucial data, and you're pretty much stuck. So, in this video, we're basically going to cover a very realistic scenario where MySQL service is going to just stop working. You're no longer going to be able to start it again. We're going to try and attempt to recover the data using some manual recovery methods, like the InnoDB recovery method, at different levels. And when that fails as well, we're going to use the Stellar recovery tool for MySQL just to demonstrate how easy it can be to recover your schema as well as the underlying data and get exports at different levels when this kind of things happen. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so what I'm gonna now show you, I'm gonna use basically XAMPP to host this entire scenario. I'm gonna start the SQL service, the Apache service, just to show you everything's running fine. And then we're going to click on admin here. Give it a second to load up, and then I'll show you exactly what I have set up. So what we have here is a right move dataset, which is essentially a database that's to do with property information. And you have just some basic fields. You have an ID field, a price field, address field, and a created app field. So as you can see, everything's working fine. I mean, we can browse through the data, you can look at how much there is and whatnot. So there's around 5,000 rows in total, and this is a bunch of simulated data. Now, obviously, in a realistic scenario, this video will be very useful to people that are constantly working on databases like database administrators, data engineers, data analysts, or anyone who might run into a corruption issue. So what we're going to do now is intentionally corrupt the database and then show you exactly what that scenario would look like. So I've created a file that's going to, that's an exact copy of our properties table that we just looked at. And then I'm going to go into the location where the properties data is currently stored. For me, it's stored in the data folder within MySQL. So I'm going to go in there, and my database name is rightMoveDemo2. Now, obviously, you wouldn't have to manually corrupt your database because you've ended up in this situation naturally because of either your server crashing due to a power outage or some kind of, memory issue or disk issue. So what I'm going to do is replace the actual, you know, fully functioning property file. Actually, I'll just delete that one because that's the fully functioning one. And before I do that, actually, I should remind myself to stop these services because otherwise I won't be able to do anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that IDB file for properties, and then the corrupted one, I'm just going to rename it and get rid of the corrupted extension. So essentially this file has some corruption in it, and it's going to simulate a realistic scenario where you're unable to access the data and MySQL service is not going to start either. Okay, so let's go back into XAMPP. We're going to attempt to start Apache. That's going to start fine. And then now the interesting part is, let's try and start MySQL. And as you can see, it's kind of stuck. It's saying attempted to start MySQL, but nothing really happens. Let's try again. And then we have this issue. It says shut down unexpectedly. It could be due to a blocked port, missing dependency, or improper shutdown. If you wanted to, you can click on the logs. We can look at the error log. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, what we'll see right here is it will say there was some kind of operating system issue, that it's unable to access certain files, to try and or to try and go through the recovery that it was trying to do on this specific table. Now, obviously, this isn't a permissions issue because I've double checked, and normally you'll get the same kind of generic error whenever this happens. Now, some of the suggestions it will give you is one of the suggestions is to try and go into this force recovery mode. Essentially, all the InnoDB Force Recovery mode does is there's around 6 levels on this. By default, your configuration is set to 0, which means whenever you start the MySQL service, it's going to go through a bunch of checks. Now, when you do InnoDB Force Recovery equals 1, that means skip like the basic safety checks. If that works, then it's just going to start the SQL service fine, and at that point you can manually dump all the data and then like keep a backup of your data. If that doesn't work, you have to step up to 2, 3, 4, 5, and level 6, all the way to 6. the more levels you jump up on the recovery, on the manual recovery, the more riskier it gets because there's a higher chance of the recovery itself corrupting your table completely, and then your data will be even harder to recover. So we're going to go through this process to try and see if we can even get the MySQL service starting, because right now we're pretty much stuck. It's not starting at all. So it's saying we should essentially go to the configuration file and then set this to greater than 0. So we're going to start with 1, just a basic, right? So in mine is pretty easy. I can go to MySQL, go to the config, my.ini, it'll be my.cnf if I'm not wrong on Linux. And then if I scroll all the way down, I've added this already, but because I've added a hashtag, that means it's commented out. So it's not counted in the configuration file. So I'll get rid of this, which means it's going to start getting counted in or factored in. Then I'll set this to 1. And then when I save this, essentially this configuration is now updated. So we can go back into XAMPP and then click on trying to start the service. So let's try to start. Start again. Same thing. Let's look at the logs. What's the log saying? Scroll all the way to the bottom again. And then as you can see, we kind of have the same issue happening here again. This is from literally just about a few seconds ago. It's complaining about the same thing and it's asking to try and set the recovery level to greater than 0. Now we're going to go all the way up to 6. So let's try 2. Let's try starting here again. No luck. Let's try 3. Oops. 3. Now, like I was saying, the more higher you go, the riskier it gets because it's skipping specific checks. So we got some movement there, but it still wasn't able to recover fully. Start again. Same thing again. Start again. Same thing. And then last one is up to 6. You can't go any higher than this because you could, but it's not going to make a difference. So let's try again. This is essentially the riskiest level. We're willing to take that risk. Let's try and start. And boom, it's still pretty much hopeless. It's a stressful situation. You've got a bunch of important data. People are chasing you. Like, what can you do at this point? Now, this is where the Stellar recovery tool for MySQL makes it super easy to avoid all of these steps and just try and recover your data, the schema as well at the same time, and export it to a format that's reasonable for you. So what we're going to do is I'm going to close this off, and then in order for us to be able to put this data into the Stellar recovery tool, we need to make a copy of your data folder. So go ahead and find where your data folder is. For me, it is right here. I'm going to copy this data folder, and it's essentially going to include all of your databases and all of your tables. So I'm going to copy that and make a local copy onto my desktop. So let's save somewhere else. I'm going to drag it over, and that's it. If I open it, you'll see the tables that I had, and one of them is right move demo2, which is the data that's corrupted. So let me close this off, and then what I'm going to do is open the recovery tool. The Stellar recovery tool is pretty straightforward, very minimalistic design, so there's not much cluttering your view, and it's pretty simple. I'm going to click on select database and then click browse. From there, we have to find that data folder that we just pasted on my desktop, and then just go to desktop, click on data, click OK, and then click OK again. What this will do is scan for a list of eligible databases that it would be able to recover. So I'm going to only click on the demo2 because I don't want to waste any time. Click repair, and boom, simple as that. Click OK. Now what we can even do is, the nice part is you can see the actual database that was recovered. You can see the tables, the schema. You can see the properties. You can click on properties, view the schema, verify that it's all correct. And then at the bottom, you even get like a nice little log of what it's done. As you can see, there's 5,000 records that are present, which means it's recovered all of the data, not just a partial fix, which is quite a big win. And it only took like a few seconds. So in a scenario where it's very, very time critical for you to try and recover the data and get the database up and running, this is a very good solution. So yeah, pretty much all the data is intact. The data integrity is fine. What you can then do is click on the save, and then you're going to be able to essentially save this in a format that is reasonable for you. You can save it in a CSV, you can save it in MySQL, MariaDB, XLS, SQL script, etc. For this demo, I was just going to save it as a CSV just to show you how that looks like. And then click save. It's processing. It's done the processing. And then it even opens up the folder for you, so you don't have to do much on that front. We'll go in there, and then if we click on this, as you can see, well, the data is in the format that it needs to be, and it's in a nice CSV. So you can either now create like a Python script that's going to take all this data, dump it in the database for you, or export it in a different format, like an SQL file, which is easier to import directly. And that's pretty much it. At this point, everything's working, everyone's happy, and I hope you found this video useful, and we'll be making use of the recovery tool that Stella has for MySQL and make your life easier in a situation where you're stuck and unable to access your data. Thanks for watching.